Okay, so we're getting our we're getting our sound system worked on here, and hopefully we'll have it done in the next 2 weeks. So my son was in here working on some of it. Put a new DVD player in. You can't hear me?
We can hear you, Pastor. You're just very muted. Move your microphone. Yeah.
How about now? No. I think maybe I got to turn this up a little bit. Jonathan knows how to turn it up, but he's not here. Well, you just have to suffer through, right? You just have to be extra quiet instead of loud and obnoxious like you normally are. Oh, you heard that, didn't you? You heard that, huh? All right. No, you guys aren't loud and obnoxious. I'm kidding. You're good. So if you have a Bible, we're going to be looking at Exodus chapter 16 and 17 today. So bread from heaven and water from a rock. You can use your digital Bible if you want, or you could use your, whichever Bible you choose. That little, I thought maybe that was an energy drink. That little.
Like a 5-hour energy.
5-hour energy.
Yes, they are called bubbles for children.
Bubbles for children. That's 5 hours of energy right there. All right, so chapter 16 of Exodus. So the children of Israel have wandered, they've been led out of Israel. They've crossed the Red Sea. They are, they've made an encampment, but the water is not very good. God has purified the bitter waters, made them sweet. And now they are starting to grumble because they're getting a little hungry, right? They're getting hungry. So they set out from Elam. And all of the congregation of the people of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elam and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they had departed from the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the people of Israel said to them, "Would that we have died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the meat pots and ate bread to the full, for you have brought us out into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." All right, we gave them a benefit of the doubt last week. And I don't know if you've ever been hungry, like really hungry. That can really cause some problems, right? Now, I know that some of you, like if you miss like lunch, right? You eat breakfast and you miss lunch, then you're near death. It's almost starvation. Right? So going maybe 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7, maybe a week without real food, that might be a little bit of a different experience for you, right? People say that the people in our today, I would doubt that there's very few people that are in our country, in the United States. If they're hungry, it's probably on them. There's soup kitchens, food banks, clothing banks. There's places to get food. There's places, right? And there's opportunity for food all around, but not in the wilderness of Sinai, in the desert of in the wilderness of Sin. Interesting title for it, isn't it? The wilderness of Sin, which is between Elam and Sinai. So they're upset, they're grumbling, they're hungry, which, as I said, a couple of weeks without food, without real food, without real bread, that can weigh on you, right? Then the Lord said to Moses, "Behold, I am about to rain bread from heaven for you, And the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not. On the sixth day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gathered daily. So Moses and Aaron said to the people of Israel, now why did they gather twice as much on the sixth day? Wouldn't gather on the Sabbath, right? The seventh was the Sabbath. They're not going to gather food on the Sabbath. Not going to work on the Sabbath, right? And that's the way God wanted it. God wanted that day to be a day of rest for them, an opportunity to be in relationship this way. And so, he sets aside that one day of rest. And so Moses and Aaron said to all the people of Israel, at evening you shall know that it was. Now, another reason, why did the Lord make them gather every day? Trust, right? Trust. So do you go to the grocery store every day? No. Some of you do. Some of you do. You go to Costco and Sam's, stock up on all kinds of things.
Free samples.
Eat all the free samples and then come home and eat all the things that you bought, right? So Moses and Aaron said to all the people of Israel, at evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumblings against the Lord. For what are we that you grumble against us? Well, I mean, who's Moses and who's Aaron? They're just people, right? They're, one's a deliverer and that kind of a thing, but they're just ordinary, everyday people that God chose to use for his glory and the people's good. And Moses said, when the Lord gives you in the evening meat to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, because the Lord has heard your grumbling, that you grumbled against him, what are we? Your grumbling is not against us, but against the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, say to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling. And as soon as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. And the Lord said to Moses, I have heard the grumbling of the people of Israel. Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God. In the evening, quail came up and covered the camp. Now, that's, not a bad deal, right? I've hunted all my life. I've been pretty fortunate at times to harvest animals relatively close to camp, but I have never had quail so many that they just covered the ground and I could just walk out and grab one. Now, I have an uncle who stepped on a grouse once, and we had grouse for dinner that night. I'm not going to tell you who that uncle is, but he might be here today. So, but imagine that, the whole camp is covered in quail, and so they got to eat. I was talking last night with Andy Koeneke. Andy and his boys were over at the Mogulvangs, and Corbin is becoming quite the hunter. So I think what they should have done was a video of it, and we call it Kill, Clean, Cook. Right? Kill, Clean, Cook. So apparently they shot a couple of doves. I know this is going live, so hopefully no one is watching. Thankfully, no one's watching. But because I don't know the legality of that. But anyways, they did it. They shot a couple doves, and then they cleaned them, and then they built a fire and cooked them. And then everybody ate them, right? Everybody was there that night, ate them. So a little quail, a little dove under glass, right? Yeah, it's good. That's good stuff. If you've never eaten dove before, I've eaten them. They're pretty good, especially wrapped in bacon. You know, but then again, everything wrapped in bacon is good, right? Is that what you said? Yeah. I mean, you could. Yeah, everything wrapped in bacon is good. So in the evening, quail came up and covered the camp. And in the morning, dew lay around the camp. And when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground. When the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, "What is this?" or "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather of it, each of you, as much as you can eat. You shall each take an omer according to the number of the persons that each of you has in his tent." So an omer is a measurement, right? A certain amount. So they gathered some more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, whoever gathered much had nothing left over, and whoever gathered little had no lack. Each of them gathered as much as he could eat. And Moses said to them, "Let no one leave any of it over till the morning." But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till morning, and it bred worms, and it stank. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning, he gathered it. Morning by morning, they gathered it, each as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. So that's what you have. You have this this film, this dew that was gathered up as bread, and was bread, and that they could eat. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the seventh day, which is a Sabbath, there will be none. So now think about that. So they gathered as much as they needed for 1 day, and then on the sixth day they gathered as much as they needed for 2 days, and it lasted for 2 days. Right? So if they gathered more than they needed on the first day or the fifth day and kept it over 1 day, then it would spoil. But if whatever they gathered on the sixth day was enough for 2 days, that would last 2 days. So that's quite an intricate thing, right? I mean, that's obviously the hand of the Lord at work in how this works. So how many of you buy fresh bread, bring it home, put it, you have a bread box? Or do you just put it out on the counter in a plastic bag with a twisty on it? Right? If you don't put the twisty on it, in about 3 days, you have penicillin. Right? Because there's a mold that will form on it, right? So I just think that's fascinating, right? That that this bread that the Lord gave was different at different times, right? So, you see what I'm saying there? I mean, every other day, 1 through 5, if they gathered more than they needed, it would spoil in 1 day. But on the sixth day, if they gathered enough to get them through 2 days, it would last. That's fascinating, right? I mean, that is obviously the work of the Lord. That's the hand of the Lord at work, right? So that's what they did, right? That's what they went about doing. They had quail, and then they had bread, and maybe the grumbling stopped for a little while, right? So let's go back to 22 there. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers each. And when all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is the day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath of the Lord. Bake what you will bake and boil what you will boil. And all that is left over lay aside to be kept till the morning." So they laid it aside till the morning as Moses commanded them, and it did not stink, and there were no worms in it. Moses said, "Eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the seventh day, which is a Sabbath, there will be none." So not only did they collect more and it lasted, but there was none on the seventh day. So if you oh, I forgot it was the Sabbath. Well, you're going hungry that day, right? You're not eating, right? So now I think this is kind of an interesting thing. What this develops then is sort of a rhythm, a tradition, a custom, a practice that is very important for the people to do, right? If you want to eat, if you want to be if you want to be connected with food, there's a rhythm that you develop. Every morning you get up, you collect it before it disappears, right? You take just as much that you can eat that day, and then you do that 5 days a week. And then on the sixth day, there's something special about that day. You collect a little more so that on the seventh, when there is none, you're ready to go. Now, so do you see where I'm going with that? With the idea of a rhythm or a pattern or a tradition, or there's lots of things you could call it. A ritual, right? A ritual. We tend to, in the world in which we live today, sadly, because of craziness of this postmodern world in which we live, we've done away with ritual. Right? We don't want that ritual is bad, but it's not. Right? You have ritual every day. I guarantee you get up and you have a ritual that you go through every morning. Right? And it very, very rarely deviates. Right? You brush your teeth the same way. Right? You use the bathroom, you do this, you do that, get a cup of coffee. Right? There's a ritual to what you're doing. And that ritual is good. Right? Right?
There's a place for good habits.
Place for good habits. Yeah. I don't mean it in a legalistic way. I simply mean that I think what the Lord was doing through this is teaching the people a ritualistic practice for their good, right? That they would do these things and be prepared, and that it would open up the Sabbath day as a day for them to be with the Lord, right? So that and we've lost some of that, I think, right? Yeah.
Pastor Schwartz used to say there's a type of busyness that isn't Christian.
Yeah.
It's like just busyness for busyness.
Yeah. And they're gonna, after they get to the Holy Land, they're gonna get into that, right? Yeah.
What you were just saying is the rituals are still there, but now the rituals are more about look at me versus look at God.
Yeah.
The thing is, you wake up the first thing and you're like, look at me.
Yeah. Let me post it on Instagram. Yeah.
Everybody praise me and everything that I do.
Yeah. Watch me put my makeup on, or what? Well, I shouldn't have. That sounds like I'm picking on women, but maybe not. And I'll let you think about that one.
There's a book by Admiral Reagan, who was commander of all SEAL forces.
Yeah.
He wrote a few years back in Make Your Bed. And what he said was, if you get up first thing in the morning, you make your bed, make it right. He said, because no matter how the rest of the day goes, it'll be really bad or whatever. At the end of the evening, when you go to bed, you're going to climb into freshly made bed.
Yeah,
That may be the best and only thing you've ever had that day.
yeah,
But if you do it the first thing in the morning, you know it's going to be there. And you,
yeah. Yeah, that's that. He wrote that book, but then he also gave that speech
yeah.
to that graduate class about, and that's number one. When you get up in the morning, make your bed. You've at least accomplished something for the day, right? You've accomplished something good, and that, so make your bed. I think that's probably sound advice. There's a woman, Sayers is her name. Margaret, I think it's Margaret Sayers. Dorothy Sayers. Dorothy Sayers. She's written a couple of books, and I think one of them is on ritual. That is excellent. But it's hard to come by, and they're very. Her books are very expensive because she wasn't real popular when she was alive, but she's very popular now that she's gone, and but an excellent writer, and wrote a number of books, and she wrote one on ritual that I think is excellent. So if you can find it, it's like $50, $50 for it to get a paperback. Yeah. Yeah, she wrote a book on classical education too. She wrote a wonderful book on classical education. Yeah, awesome author. Yeah. So on the seventh day, some of the people went out to gather, but they found none, right? Well, you're not listening, right? It's like, we would send out all these notifications that church was going to go to one service. When we used to go back to one service every year, we would send all these notifications that we were going to one service in the summer. Now, we're not doing that anymore. So what I'm about to say has nothing to do with anything today. But we would send out notification after notification. We would make everyone, we'd make as many people aware as we possibly could. And then someone would show up and they'd be all bent out of shape because they came and we didn't have church. Well, you were warned, right? You were warned. And I think that's the case. So on the seventh day, some people went out to gather, but they found none. And the Lord said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the sixth day, he gives you bread for 2 days. Remain each of you in his place. Let no one go out of his place on the seventh day." So the Lord rested on the seventh day. Now, now the house of Israel called its name manna, and it was like coriander seeds, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations, so that they may see the bread with which I have fed you in the wilderness. Then I brought you out of when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar and put an omer of manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept throughout your generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the testimony to be kept. The people of Israel ate the manna 40 years till they came to a habitable land. They ate the manna till they came to the border of the land of Canaan. An omer is the 10th part of an ephah. Does that make it clearer? Yeah. Yeah. So this is fascinating too, right? So the Lord said, take a jar and fill it, put an omer of it in, and then this is going to last, sort of forever, right? This is not going to go away. Now, later on, there's our we have our, we're going to get to this through, and we get it as we're going through Exodus, we will get to the tabernacle and everything. But eventually they built the Ark of the Covenant. And then people say, what was in the Ark of the Covenant? Well, you had the Ten Commandments, you had Aaron's staff, you had the bread that in this, you had the manna that was in this jar that was placed in the ark, and I think there might have been a few things more too, but fascinating what was placed in the ark, right? So, but we'll get to that later. There you have a manna from heaven, right? Manna from heaven. Any questions about that?
I have a question about the quail.
About the quail? Yeah,
So how many children of Israel were there?
probably about over 2 million,
Right. So
maybe 3.
I'm
It's a lot of quail.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around how many quail it would take to feed 2 million Israelites
Have you seen a quail?
every night.
Well,
For 40 years.
it's not clear as to whether the quail continued. The bread continued,
Right.
but it's not clear as to whether the quail continued. So they had bread from heaven.
Right. Well, because I was going to say, I mean, somewhere along the line, you'd think that the quail would learn. But clearly they didn't. So survival of the fittest no longer is in play because you've got that many quail that simply aren't learning.
Yeah.
That don't follow the Israelites. You're going to die.
Yeah. It's a lot of quail too. I mean, have you seen a quail? Have you ever eaten quail?
I've never had quail.
I've eaten quail. I mean, so they're not real big, right? Maybe 1 quail per person, maybe. But, if you're hungry, man, 2 quail, easy, right? They're not real big. So,
Where's
Yeah.
all the breeding happening?
was it what?
Where's all the breeding happening?
The breeding grounds of the quail. Yeah, out in the wilderness. That's a good question.
Quail that shows up every night.
So this is part of the problem that now this is why we don't have many quail left, is because the Israelites.
It doesn't mean that they're the same as we have built.
Why wouldn't it?
It can be larger.
Yeah, they might be larger.
Listen, if he could create manna, he could create a way.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not questioning that at all.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I don't believe that. I don't believe that it was every night that they got quail. So he talks about them eating meat that day, and he talks about them eating bread in the morning, and then the focus is on the bread.
Right, the focus is on the bread, but I can't imagine that they would start grumbling pretty quickly then again if they didn't have quail.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that they had quail one night and then God said, yeah, that's it. We'll talk about something else 40 years from now.
Yeah. Well, they certainly had animals with them, right? I mean, they had animals with them. They had sheep, goats, right? I mean, they had animals with them, which they could eat. What they did not have was grains and things that they could make bread.
Question, but I have a question. 40 years of tribulation, they got angry at God,
The whole way through.
but they never overthrew Aaron
Or Moses. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
today.
So maybe that's good. Maybe that's sound advice for pastors, right? That your people will grumble against you on a regular basis, but they're really not mad at you. They're mad at God, right? And they will not overthrow you. Hopefully not. Right? Yeah, no. Yeah. I mean, Moses. Man, there's a lot more of them than there is of Moses and Aaron, and yet God, kept Moses and Aaron up there. Yeah. So I wonder. I mean, certainly it's not like I'm going to murder you type grumbling, right? It's man, when you brought us out here, what in the world? You know what I mean? It's sort of the way we grumble about things, right? Yeah.
But they did have the opportunity to observe what happened to people who did.
Yeah. Yeah. They had the opportunity to recognize when,
Holes in the ground. Like,
yeah. This is not going to work well for you if you want really. I mean, you might grumble a little bit. Now I'll put up for a little, but this could end poorly. So I do want to make mention of the idea of manna and bread from heaven, right? As the supper, right? I mean, the Lord's Supper, right? The Lord fed His people down through the ages in the wilderness with this bread from heaven, and now, right? And as in a sense, as we live in the wilderness of this world, with all of its struggles, sin, and death. The Lord feeds us with manna Sunday after Sunday, right? It is a heavenly bread, right? It's made here in wherever, and it's a little thin. I don't. What did it taste like? It tastes like honey. I've yet to taste honey in the wafers that we have. They taste more. They don't have a taste, do they? They just sort of melt in your mouth.
sounds like a scoop pop.
Yeah, sounds like nice waffle, right? Yeah, not what we get on Sunday mornings, but that's okay. I think the intent is that the idea there is we are receiving the manna that God, this is Christ's body and blood, right? The manna from heaven. And I think the key thing here is people have a tendency to say, okay, well, God did something in the Old Testament and He's not doing it anymore. Well, yeah, I think He kind of is, right? I think that continues on, which then takes us to the next story, which is water flowing from a rock, right? Bread and water. If you're Italian, I guess you might say bread and water are they're the necessities of life, right? You got to have bread. Well, maybe it's bread and wine for Italians. But certainly bread is one, right? And you got to have bread, and you got to have water, right? Those two things are sort of necessities of life, which I find fascinating today when you can't eat gluten because it's bad for you, right? Okay, maybe it is, but we're talking about a different type of bread, and so you have this wonderful bread from heaven, and I think there's something to that idea that these are the things that sustain life. Okay, you might be able to go a couple of weeks, maybe a month without food. You're not going to go long without water. Right? You're not going to go long without water. Water from the rock. What's that? Or wine. Or wine. As you say, or wine? Yeah. For some, they get all their water from wine. Yeah. Water from the rock. Chapter 17. All the congregation of the people of Israel moved on from the wilderness of sin by stages, according to the commandment of the Lord, and camped at Rephidim. But there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore, the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water, and the people grumbled against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us?" This is a recurring theme, right? "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock?" Right? We were talking about. I mean, they had livestock, so they must have had things to eat there. With thirst, to kill us with thirst. So Moses cried to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." Yeah, but they don't, right? They don't. And the Lord said to Moses, "Pass on before the people, taking with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water shall come out of it. and the people will drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the name of the place Massa and Meribah, because of the quarreling of the people of Israel, and because they tested the Lord by saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" So Massa and Meribah, I think those two words mean like suffering and blessing. I think they have something to do with that. I'm looking. Anybody have that in their Bible?
Yes.
Yeah. What do those two words mean?
Well, mass means testing.
Testing. Yeah.
Meribah means
Quarreling.
quarreling.
Oh, so they both mean testing and quarreling. Yeah. So that's what the place was called. So they're questioning whether the Lord was still with them, and the answer is yes, He is. Right, He is still with them, and so He provides for them water from the rock. Right, strike the rock. Moses taps the rock, water comes out, and they're able to drink. Once again, God taking care of the people, and so in this way, right, we have baptism. Right, we have our baptism, and our Lord ties those, these two things, baptism and the Lord's Supper, are tied to, manna and the wilderness water. I think, yeah.
God only gave it to them after they asked to go for manna.
Yeah.
Have to ask in order to have that.
Oh, that's a great question. Do you have to ask in order for God to give you such things? I think there is a sense in which God. So why did they need them? Why did they need food and water? Right? They were hungry and they were thirsty, and so there is this sense in which people hunger and thirst for righteousness. Right? That God uses the law. God uses the law to kind of bring us to a point where we are in need of the gifts that God gives, right? And so we have, and I would say that's the work of the Spirit to bring about this desire for those things in your lives, right? God wants you to have a desire for manna. God wants you to have a desire for your baptism. Now, I think it's different at different times. Like for a child, I think the desire is on the parent's side. They want their child to have that, so they give them, right? For the adult, I think the adult desires to be baptized, right? I mean, we ask that question, do you want to be baptized? Yes, right? And so there is this sense in which the Lord is at work. So we struggle with, at what point does a person have faith, and when does that all happen, and how does that all work? And we tie baptism and the Spirit's work, all that together, and we kind of bundle it in one big package, and then we try to figure it all out. And I don't know whether you can say, well, the person had faith and then they were baptized, or the person was baptized and then they had faith. I think it's a package deal, right? It's a bundled package deal. And I'm very hesitant to try and sort out when all of that happens, how that all happened, right? So yeah, I think there is a thirst, a hunger, right, that the Lord is using the law to bring us to, so that we desire that, and then maybe we ask, right? I have people that come and say, Pastor, I've never been baptized. I want to be baptized. Okay, let's talk about what that means, what that's all about. There certainly is the Lord is drawing us to those things sometimes by our own nature, right? Which I think is kind of cool, right? We need food, right? So God gives manna. We need water, so God gives water from the rock. Yeah, you were going to say something, Ken?
The concept of unbaptized Christian was unheard of in the early church.
Yeah. Well, I think it's still unheard of, right? I mean, how is one a Christian without the gift of baptism? Right? If Jesus said, "Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them," then how can one be a Christian without the gift of baptism? No, I'm not going to, yeah, there are people that die without baptism and okay, we can have that discussion. But the ordinary necessity, the ordinary way of life is the Christian gets baptized, right? If you want to talk desert island theology, we can do that all day, but we'll never come up with it. Right? But the general pattern of the way God set this up is baptism is important, right? Dare I say, even necessary, right? And it's this great gift, right? And then food, right? Food necessary to eat. Yeah.
If necessity, could someone baptize themselves? Say whatever,
Yeah.
the desert island, man.
Yeah. You're not on the desert island, but you're really close to it. This was I think it was Augustine that came up with this one. He said, so the two people on a boat, one is a Christian, one is not a Christian, right? The boat is going down. As the boat is going down, the non-Christian says to the Christian, please baptize me, right? The Christian baptizes him, right? And then the newly baptized, the Christian who just baptized him says to the newly baptized, hear my confession, right? And so he confesses, and then they both go down. Can a person baptize themselves? I would say no, right? You need that. You need that other person there to, you know what I mean? And you need that. You need those. You need to hear it and receive it from. Right now, does that person have to be a pastor? No. I mean, man, oh man, go to any hospital in the in the baby ward, and I guarantee you, there's a lot of Christian nurses in there that have baptized babies that could have gone either way, and they were slinging water all over the place, right? So thanks be to God for that, right?
Remember last time we saw them baptized?
Who did we see baptized?
At the beach.
Oh yeah, they were doing a baptism at the beach. Yeah. They were all wearing black shirts, which I thought was odd. And
People that were getting baptized
they were all wearing black shirts.
You're getting wet and you don't want to see.
Well, that's true. Yeah. So
Contest is a baptism.
all I can say is next time I go, I'm taking a couple of black shirts with me, just to have some fun with them. That's terrible. That's terrible. That's terrible, right? I mean, sorry. Please, Lord, forgive me. Right? Yeah.
I think the question is actually interesting because of the controversy right now with the in-home communion that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because there are
Yeah.
some Lutheran churches, sadly, I'm sure everyone knows that.
Yeah.
We're just.
Communing it. Yeah. They send home the hermetically sealed bread and
Yes,
grape juice.
And then over the internet.
And over the internet,
Yeah, so they're saying the word institution, but I'm wondering if you've heard of any instances of baptism virtually.
Virtual
It's
baptism.
interesting because I haven't heard of that.
That's a good one. I haven't heard of that.
I mean, it's just appalling, isn't it?
It is. So
But wait, during COVID and churches were shut down, I would see on the internet like people.
Were they doing virtual baptism?
No. The communion, like so.
Right,
But-
there's a lot of churches still doing that, even.
so part of the problem there is we are meant to be in community, right? Communion is a fellowship, right? Communion is not, wow, I'm watching this on television. Man, that's cool, right? That's a fine line we're skirting when we do that way, right? I think it would be much better if churches just set up a place where people could come and have the Lord's Supper in the sanctuary or in the church or in the narthex or in the parking lot or wherever. At least they would be doing it that way, and that'd be better than this idea of doing it online.
So obscure when you think about what people are doing.
Yeah.
These weird circumstances.
Yeah.
It's worthwhile.
Well, I have 5 minutes to get a robe on, so I will say, the Lord be with you. So we'll pick up that chapter 17 next week and continue on with it.